Chris Sewall here, baseball card collector, investor, dealer, in that order. Welcome everyone. Recently, Troy here reached out to me, and that was really cool since he has a fantastic YouTube channel, which I really enjoy. We had never met before, but he said, hey Chris, I recently bought my first large collection. I did a video about it, and it really didn't go that well. So I would love to do a collab and discuss, buying collections and get your input on what maybe I could have done better. And we ended up talking for well over an hour. Really, really fun conversation for me as we veered off into various dealing sub-conversations. But this was meant for his channel, but I asked if I could post it on my channel as well, and he said yes, of course. I edited it down a little bit here, but if you want to check out his video first where he talks about the collection he purchased in Hawaii, I would highly recommend that. It's a great video. I've included a link to it in the description below. But here is our conversation. Hope you enjoy.
I guess before we get into like the nitty gritty of my video, which I guess I gotta intro that a little bit too. I'm assuming everyone has seen it, which is definitely not the case. I made a video about a month ago about me flying to Hawaii to buy out pretty much my first big sports card collection. And it went really wrong. There was a card that was mislabeled. I think I paid too much for the collection in general. I just kind of made some mistakes. And that's why, once again, we're bringing in the big guns to help me with that. So I guess my first question would be, have you ever made a similar mistake on a collection or had anything like that happen to you?
Definitely, and early on, it happened quite regularly. So I actually wanted to ask you a couple of questions because I've seen a bunch of your recent videos, but I don't know the whole. So you're clearly set up at shows a lot, and you do a lot of show dealing, right?
Yep.
But this was only the second large collection you've purchased.
Yeah, and I think this is really the first real collection. Almost everything I've bought up until this point has been the standard, comp it out and then pay what the percentage of what you wanted to pay. This was the first time I've really had to do guesswork, and I was dealing with such a large quantity of cards.
Okay. Yeah, well, that, by the way, that must have been fun to go to Hawaii on
Very cool.
on your for work.
I felt like a big shot for about a couple hours, and then things came crashing down. But hey, people even say worst case, I still got a trip to Hawaii out of it.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I mean, so that's the first sort of question I had for you is because you mentioned it in the video, but do you consider the trip part of your expenses? Because normally you would, or you should, or I would. But if you're viewing it as a free Hawaii trip on you're looking to just sort of break even and pay for your trip. I don't know, how were you viewing it going in, and how did you view it afterwards?
I definitely if I had, it wasn't, I didn't consider it a full trip basically. I wasn't looking to just, it was, I would say in my head, it was a small benefit because I knew I would be there for such a short amount of time, right? Ideally I would have gotten to go with my girlfriend and spent a whole week. Then I would have been I'm chilling. The deal's almost an accessory to the trip. But that's the other thing too, because I'm new to this. I underestimated how much work I would have because I was like, okay, I have 2 days. I'll basically get 1.5 days to spend at the beach. I literally touched water for 5 minutes. I was like, oh man, what a waste, because I was so busy. I had to break down the cards. I had to run to get luggage and everything. So I don't know. That was another thing. I'm not even sure how I looked at it, I guess.
Well, that's one. I mean, I really loved that video because it does hit on some things that the average person just wouldn't even consider. It's oh, you're going to drive to Cincinnati and buy a collection and drive back, or whatever, fly back, whatever you're going to do. And the thought is just, oh, you're going to pay X for the cards and you're going to sell them for Y, and the difference is your profit. But you got to consider your flight, your hotel, your car rental, your gas expenses, and the things like packing it up, going to the post office. Oh, the post office is closed. We got to go again tomorrow. Oh, they don't accept this size package. Oh, we got to go buy a box. Oh, we got to go buy shipping tape. This is extremely time-consuming stuff that people probably don't consider. And when you're buying a large collection out of town, you got to factor all that in. So I like that your video sort of touched on some of that stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, that's one of the things I underestimated as well, and I'm still learning, right? And we're not going to turn this into a sob story for dealers/YouTubers. I don't think anyone's going to watch this and think you have the hardest job in the world. But a lot of times when I'm buying, people are like, oh, you're going to make 30% or whatever it is. It's it's a lot of work, man. This was so, I was so stressed in Hawaii, as I kind of said, I didn't even I had hardly, once again, I have the worst job in the world. I feel like I didn't have any fun because I was running the post office and then it didn't fit and I had to break it down. And then that's not even to mention getting home and uploading everything. I'm still learning more, and also things that are going to go wrong. Things some of the slabs got cracked coming back because I put it in the wrong size box. 100% my mistake, but like these things kind of happen.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously the Kobe not being a refractor was a big, unexpected hit. But yeah, I mean, every time I go to the National, it's like that. It's like, okay, I'm going to Chicago, and I'll be done Sunday afternoon. I'll chill on Sunday, but then I end up spending all of Sunday sorting cards and shipping.
Yeah, it's
shipping out Monday morning. Yeah.
It's a tough balance as well, because one of the things I really like about this job, if you will, right now is I get to travel. And I'm like, okay,
Sure.
I'm going to Chicago, I'm going to Dallas or whatever it is, and I'll have friends there. And it's like, okay, like, oh yeah, after the show, I'll go out or whatever. And then if I end up doing something besides the cards, I am wiped afterwards because I don't even have a minute to myself because it's just go, 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 go.
So one thing you said in the video, which I was so you said you were paying 80%. You were going to pay 80%. Was that just so I was clear? Were you paying 80% just for the slabs, and then everything else you weren't factoring it in, or were you roughly paying 80% of what you thought the whole value was?
Yeah. So how I looked at it was, initially I was like, if I pay 80% on the slabs and the raw cards, how close to even does that get me? So even I, the idiot I am who made this bad decision, I would never want to pay 80% on a whole collection. I was just kind of, like you said, not factoring the other. I knew there was a lot of bulk and even raw cards that I just happened to not throw in there. I was like, okay, if I do 80%, where does that get? Like, how, basically, one of the things you've talked about, and not to answer the questions for you, but it's like, how quickly can I get back to even, basically? And I was like, okay, all these at 80%, where does that get me?
Oh, I see. Okay. I mean, 80%, you can't pay that on a bulk deal. So at a show, you can, right? If somebody walks up with a cool card, you can often pay 80% happily. But yeah, in a bulk deal, I mean, you mentioned in the video, when you got tons of dollar cards and $2 cards and $5 cards, by the way, that's my favorite thing. My favorite thing is to have bulk because I like to play with the cards.
Yeah.
So I enjoy that. But selling that is not, selling that's tough and takes a long time, a lot of work and a lot of time to sell through that stuff. So 80% will kill you if you continue that.
It's funny you bring that up, and we're just going to be jumping all over the place. We'll figure this out, or I'll edit it or something. We'll make something work. But that's been the biggest thing I've struggled with lately is the less than $5 cards. So like my sweet spot kind of for what I've been doing is I love to sell exactly $5 cards on eBay, like just random stuff. Like I literally just sold one as we got on here, LeBron, Revolution, Groove, like just random base card, $5. I'm like, I can get that for less than $1. Like that's great. Like that's cool. Like I like doing that. Right, it's a good amount of work, but for right now I enjoy doing it. But it's the stuff that falls under that category that has been really tough for me. I don't know what to do with it. I put it in my dollar bins at shows, it does okay, but like like a $1 card, right? It's like, okay, I'm not worried about it. But like a $2 to $3 card, I have no idea what to do with.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that's I'm very similar. Like anything when you get below the $5 threshold, you got to be paying. I don't want to say pennies on the dollar, but kind of that because you're just going to move through. So I don't set up at shows, but you do more sales at shows or on eBay?
I probably do like 90% eBay at this point, actually. I don't sell much at shows at all. I'm mainly focused on buying, honestly, when I go to shows.
Yeah.
Especially on the lower end stuff, because I don't want to have to, like, selling people who sell whatever, do whatever you want, but selling $5 cards at shows and keeping track of my inventory and stuff like that is just, I can't imagine it.
But you do have like dollar boxes and $2 boxes. Yeah. Even at a good show, would you sell through 10% of your inventory in a dollar box?
Oh, not even.
I mean,
not even close. I think I've recorded it one time. The most I've ever done is like maybe like $250 of like, but it's basically $1 cards. So, okay, maybe that's a little harsh, but 10% would be a good day. Let's put it that way.
Would be like the best you could hope to do. Yep. Yeah. So that I don't know how often you do shows, but that's a good indicator. Like, well, if you're paying 10%, comps, if everything's $1 and you're paying 10 cents on the dollar, you'd break even after one show. Yep. So I mean, you can pay that, but in the long run, you can't be paying 50. You can't even be paying 50 cents on a dollar card. Big picture, you're gonna probably die with a lot of the cards.
Yeah, literally, like I'm in my room and it feels like I'm literally drowning in cards. I think the nightmares are going to start where the dollar cards start going on top of me.
Start eating you.
Yeah.
Do you ever make lots for eBay?
No, and I think I should, because there's another guy, shout out Dollar Box Cards, who I've seen on his story, and he posts the stuff he sells. It'll be like base, Ronaldo or Messi, like 50 cards, and he'll get like $100 or $150 for stuff that wouldn't even sell in my Dollar Box. It's I mean, maybe it's something I should look into, but I've never done it.
But yeah, I found myself at some point. You have so many singles, and they're moving okay, but they're not moving as fast as you're getting them in, so the pile gets more and more. And then I just start making bulk lots for eBay with the stuff that basically isn't selling, and taking a fraction of what it is worth in a bulk lot. But so when you bought, you calculated the slabs and it was 80%, and then how much value was in the loose stuff?
This once again speaks to my lack of experience.
Dude, I have a bunch of these, so you shouldn't feel bad.
I had no idea, basically. I just was like, I think the number I got to was, I'll have to go back and look at the video, but I think I paid 6.8, not including my travel expenses. I want to say 80%, including the Kobe, got me to like 5.8 or something like that. So I was like, there's easily, I was like, there's so many cards. I was like, there's even just like, there's some Pokemon boxes and stuff in there. I was like, in my head, and I was correct, actually, to be fair to myself. I was like, I know my absolute worst case, I can send these to auction, I can do this, and that. I was like, my worst case is I'm breaking even. So I'm kind of willing to take the risk to see what else is in there. Because that's what, I FaceTime with him, and I kind of did, like I said, I did a kind of a spot check. I was like, oh, is there junk in here? And then he was like, oh, interesting. Basketball RPA out of 5, like just sitting in the box. And I was like, okay, even that, like, I know there's good stuff hiding in here. Let's take the risk on it. Sure.
Well, I mean, to be honest, for a trip to Hawaii, that's a risk that might be worth taking. Yeah. I mean, if you can worst case scenario break even and get a trip to Hawaii on it, that's, you won't be able to make a living doing that every month, I guess. But
true.
But if it's a one-off thing, but yeah, no, I had lots of break evens early on. For me, it was often when I don't know if this happened to you. Once I'm looking at the collection, it's like too exciting. There's like no way I'm not going to buy it. And so even if he's too high, I wasn't disciplined enough to walk away at the time. And maybe, I don't know if that was an issue for you. I mean, like at the moment you bought it, did you feel like it was still a good buy?
When I pulled the trigger over messages, I thought it was a really good buy. I was very excited by it. Yeah. Once I actually picked it up and started looking a little bit, I got very nervous right away. Not because it wasn't, I'm not going to say it wasn't what I expected. Like I wasn't like, oh wow, this is like, it's kind of what I expected, but I was just like, oh geez, like it's going to be a lot of work. Like there's a lot of bulk cards in here I know I won't be able to sell, So I got nervous pretty quickly.
Do you keep really close, accurate numbers, or are you sort of, or not exactly? I mean, I don't anymore, by the way. So don't feel bad if the answer is no.
For anyone watching, no, I don't. I don't at all.
Yeah.
I'm really, really bad. And once again, like my comments will let me know again, but I admit that's a mistake. But the hardest, what got me with it too was, like I tried, but then I was making even just trades alone messed me up, right? I was like, okay, I bought this card for, like, if I bought a card, I would buy a card at a show for $300. I traded it at 800 value. Like, how do I didn't make $800. I can't say plus 500. It's a trade, or I bought a lot of cards and they don't have individual values on them, right? A lot of the time. So I just kind of got overwhelmed with that once again. And I was like, I don't even know how even if I wasn't being, a little bit lazy, it's kind of confusing for me to accurately mark everything down.
Sure.
But yeah, no, buying at shows has been a lot better, because I remember when I started too, I made so many mistakes, and that's what I was trying to give myself grace with this one. I'm like, when I think about what I did when I first set up as a dealer, before, one of the biggest mistakes I made was I thought I had to accept trade deals with everyone, right? Like they would give me, I would have a $500 card, right? And then they would offer me 5, sometimes it was even worse than that, but like let's say 5 $100 cards that had comps on them. But in my brain, I'm like, first of all, I don't want those cards. Second of all, like that was a best offer from 4 months ago. Like I knew in my heart I would have a really hard time. Like it would be a Burrow Prizm Silver PSA 10, easy card to move, and I'd be trading for soccer autos,
random inserts,
random stuff. But I was like, well, fair is fair. Why? Like the guy's being fair with me, I should have to make the deal. And that was one of the biggest things I learned. I was like, well, it's a fair deal, but it's not one I want to make. It's okay for me to say no.
So that's something you were making, a mistake you were making earlier on. You've kind of gotten over that.
Yep. Or same thing. I was, and this is a mistake I see a lot of people making in the show game now, is people are so fixated on a percent of comps. It's buy at 70% or die. But that can also go the other way, right? Because sometimes people show me stuff and they're like, hey man, 70%, and I see the comp, but I'm like, I don't want this though, and I know it's gonna be hard for me to move, or this and that. Or sometimes it goes the other way too, like I'll pay more if it's something I really want. But once again, I was really fixated. I was like, all right, if they're gonna sell to me at 70%, I have to do it.
That is such a good lesson, because it applies exactly to what you're saying with the it's not just a percentage. It's like a Joe Burrow Silver Prism or a Hank Aaron rookie. You can pay very, very strong on that, because you know that you're gonna be able to move that. It's not likely to plummet in value. There's lots of buyers out there for that. But if somebody walks in with a random insert of a B level player, or a second tier star vintage card, you can't pay 80%, because that's going to be much harder to find a buyer. If you run it in an auction, it's much less likely to reach full value. So someone who just pays 70% across the board, I would say that's a bad mentality to have. Like as an extreme example, if someone walks up with like a $1,000 card or $1,001 cards, I did a video on this like on my channel at one point, but like $1,001 cards, you might have to be paying 10-20%, right? Whereas a $1,000 card, you can pay 70-80 depending on what it is. But so the range of what you should be paying percentage wise is actually drastic. It's not like 70%. It's 20% to 80%. I just gave examples of a 20 to 80% range.
Yeah.
And it really depends on and how easy it is to sell the card, like you said, is such an underrated aspect of it.
And I'm trying to, and I saw that in your videos, and I'm trying to learn as well. To be honest, my range right now is more like 60 to 80, and I'm not as fixated on 70, but still for the most part I keep it in that range. But I've seen your video.
Well, you mean at shows when you're buying like mostly slab stuff at shows?
Yeah, but even in your videos, I apologize, I forget. I think it might have been a raw like Bowman Chrome auto of a star or someone. I forget exactly what it was, but you paid like 90% or something, pretty close to it, and I was like shocked. But your logic made sense. I think you graded it. It ended up doing well. I apologize, forget exactly what it is, but I guess long story short, from what I've seen, you will pay strong on stuff that you believe in or you want.
Absolutely. Now I'll pay 100% if I think there's grading upside, or I happen to know a buyer who I know is going to will pay 110%. I'll pay very strong if it's the right item, but if it's the wrong item, you have to really, really drop the, drop it.
Okay, 100%. Well,
that's a great lesson. I mean, it sounds like you know that already from shows. That's actually something I'm trying to learn myself at shows, because I'm starting to set up at shows and don't have that experience. But yeah, with the big collections, the same rules apply.
It's funny. It's one of those things, and that's one thing. There's a lot of things I know, but I don't follow.
Well, knowing the rules and being disciplined about them are very different.
Yeah, like for some reason, and this is like I have an addiction to, like, well, one of the things is like dollar boxing. Like it's just so fun for me, right? I'm like,
love it.
I found it for $1, I sold it for $5. Like that's crazy, blah blah. But then, one time I flew to Denver and I did that basically the whole day, and then at the end of the day, well, actually, like, I'll end up making $100 or something like that, $150, which is fun especially if it's just a side gig or going down the street, blah blah, all this stuff. But then at the end of the day, I bought one really nice card, graded it, got a 10, and I'm like, oh my God, that took me 5 minutes versus the dollar box, and which I'll continue to do. But I guess one of the things I keep telling myself is like, you have to be very cognizant of where you spend your time, because I'm forever going to do lower end stuff, but if you're not going to get, at least it seems to me for the most part, you're not going to get the same return on your time that you would dealing with more expensive cards.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, your time is the longer you do this, the more important your time becomes, because the more valuable you become.
Yeah.
Buying a collection where you end up, making minimum wage on your time is just not something you can do long term. But yeah.
100%. Well, that kind of brings me to one of the questions I wanted to ask you. Obviously, we only have so much time here, and your time is valuable, as we've talked about. But what's your general? So if someone came to you with a big sports card collection, what is generally how you break it down? Like, what is your process?
I generally try to separate it by value, like the most value. I mean, in simplest terms, you can pay the highest percentage for the most valuable stuff. Yeah. There's lots of exceptions to that, but you break it down by value and sort of, okay, this type of stuff I can pay 80% on, this type 70, 60, 50, whatever. Mm-hmm. But that's it's really a case by case basis, yeah.
And how much
every collection is different. Mm-hmm. Every collection is different. Every seller is different. It's like, sometimes it depends on the seller and their desires and their needs. Some people want to sell the entire thing. Some people want to have it picked through, whatever. So there's so many variables to make that rule.
Okay. And obviously, once again, you have a lot more experience than me. But at this point, how much of that is feel versus you almost looking up every card? Because that's one of the things that has been tough for me. It's like, on a big collection, I don't have time to even necessarily place those in all those different values if it's a lot of cards.
If I'm going through a collection, I'll actually often make a pile of, this is the stuff I need to check, because I don't know if this is a $10 card or a $50 card or whatever. I don't know how much time you had at the guy's house. That actually plays a big part, because if you have like all day, I'll do that as much as necessary. But sometimes you only have an hour and you can't. Mm-hmm. And in those cases, you just have to be ultra conservative on the stuff you don't know. And
yeah,
you have to be kind of.
Well, that was kind of part of my problem as well. And I think what some people were maybe confused on is we agreed on the deal before I had ever seen anything in person.
That's a mistake.
Well, but here's the thing, though. Here's my thinking.
Yeah.
This is once again, this is the best thing ever having you on. What was I supposed to do? Because I couldn't book a flight. Imagine if I go to Hawaii, I look through it, and he's like, sorry, it doesn't work for me. Like, I'm just out $1,000. Take my behind home out $1,000. That didn't really seem like an option for me.
Could you have agreed on like just the graded stuff up front? That's actually probably how I would have tried to do it. Okay. Like, let's come to a price on the graded stuff, and then while I'm there, we can make a separate deal on the ungraded stuff. Because the graded stuff, you can at least comp out and, know you're paying fair on that.
Yeah.
But do you think that could have been an option? Or
100%. And actually, I thought about doing that, and that's probably what I should have done. I was like, let's at least agree on something before I get there.
Yeah.
And then when I get there, I can figure out the rest of the stuff, so I know I at least have something. But
yeah,
I didn't have time. I think that's one of the things that got me is I went to one show. I can't even remember what shows. I think I was at Dallas. Then I went to Burbank, and then I got back from Burbank on Monday, and I flew to Hawaii on Tuesday.
Okay, so you were flopping all around.
Yes, and that was I'm at Disneyland and all this stuff. Once again, talking about burning the candle at both ends. I made mistakes because my mind wasn't in the right place. So that's something I'm definitely learning. But
when looking at a collection, I'm almost more interested today in the person and their story and are they reasonable more than the collection itself. I mean, the collection has to be good, obviously, something you want to buy, but the deal is more incumbent on the person than the cards almost. So I always, if I'm traveling, I always make sure that this is a person I'm not saying your guy wasn't, but this is a person I want to make sure we're on the same page. We're going to be in agreement with, he's going to be cool selling it at a price that I can pay and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. I think that story matters in a bunch of different circumstances as well, because I have people come to me at shows and they want to buy at 70% or whatever, a low percentage, so they can go sell it and make a little bit of money. And I know for some people that that works for them. But for me, I'm like, okay, if this is kind of what you're trying to do, like it's not gonna, the way I buy it's not gonna line up, you know. And that's another thing I'm learning is what do they call it, like the velocity of money or whatever. Like it matters how quickly you can do things. Like if you can make 10% but it takes you 30 minutes, that's a really it's like I used to be so fixated on I need to like get the max value of it, but it's like no, if you can just move it quicker, that a lot of times can be very beneficial
and free up cash for the next deal.
100%.
Do a lot of people want to trade?
Yeah, a lot of people want to trade. A lot of people want to trade.
Okay. How do you handle trades? Do you generally trade at comp for comp, or do you try to get 10%, or you know, how do you even handle a trade? Or would you trade an even for an even if it's a card you're more you think is an easier sell?
Yeah, it's definitely a case by case basis, and there's so many different factors as well, right? Like, I've had certain cards where, you know, it's a more expensive card, but I'm into it for a really good number, and you know, they're let's say, you know, I bought the card, I'm into it for $2,000, and the value on it is like $5,000 or something like that, and the person is trading me stuff I don't want, and the values are a little off, but I'm like, you know, realistically I can get 3.5 out of this or something like this, even with the stuff he's trading me. I'm fine to piece it out and do this and that. And then there's other times where if, like, you know, if someone brings up some clean raw cards that are stuff I want, I'm happy to just go even for even. So I guess that wasn't a great answer, but go ahead.
Because you might have some like grading upside there.
Correct. So it's really a case by case basis. That trading is super case by case. But the biggest thing I've as I kind of mentioned before is like I'm harsh. I'm a little harsh with trading. It has to make sense for me. You know, like I'm not going to trade a card, even if you give me 80% value. Once again, bringing up like the Burrow Silver example or whatever, like I'll have it in my case. I'm like, I know this will be gone for cash within the next 2 to 3 hours. So even if you're giving me great value, I'm just not really interested in trading this one, especially if I don't like what you have.
So that's so important. Yeah. The Burrow Silver, which we keep using as our examples, it's a perfect example. Like, you know, that's going to sell. It's not right. You're going to turn that. You know. People often think like I got a card that's $100. I can just now I got a $100 bill. That's not the case. But with a Burrow Silver, it kind of is, right? But with a random card, it might not be. I mean, I love card shows more than that's my favorite thing of the hobby is card shows. But I've never set up there. But I've never really set up at them. But yeah, my favorite is just you're just chatting with another card guy, making a deal, and that's something I love about your videos is it seems fun the way you do it. It's very like laid back, chill, relaxed. And you know, there's no like pressure. You know, you're not pressuring anyone. I think a lot of people feel like if they go up to a dealer, they're going to feel pressured, and there are dealers that do pressure. But yeah, making it enjoyable is something I think is important. I think you do it well.
Yeah, that's definitely one thing. Not just in my videos, with just how I interact with people in general. That's one of my biggest things is just having fun and also being respectful at the same time, right? So there's so many, and I know you're the same exact way. Like, there's so many times where we don't come into an agreement or this and that, but I always like, it's not that hard, just be nice, right? I'm like, I go, hey, I totally see where you're coming from. I don't want to trade for that card in particular just because I think it'll be a little hard for me to move. And I feel like this Burrow is going to move at this show. So I think I'm going to hold off for it. It's something, be nice. And a lot of times too, the biggest thing I learn a lot from your channel. I feel like sometimes I teach people at card shows too. They'll come up to me with questions and they'll be like, oh, I bought this, or why do you value this here? It's like everyone can learn from each other.
Yeah, very cool. Do you have a lot of young kids coming up with, you know, $10,000 cards looking to trade? Because that is something that did not exist a few years ago.
But you'll see these little kids are crazy.
No, I know. I saw it at Dallas. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Because it's not just the cards too. I think the manners leave some room to be desired. It's they'll walk up, you buying? What, Tatum, right here.
I don't know that I was the politest kid at 13.
True. I guess that's fair, but they're very like they're about their business. That's what I'll say.
Their business. Let's get down to business.
100%. 100%.
That's funny.
So I guess I kind of want to boil down some of this. I think you have a good understanding of how the Hawaii deal went at this point, or was there any other questions you had?
No, I think I understand it. I think the Kobe, I think that was almost like a truly unfortunate bad luck. I mean, I want to say I would have seen it, but I don't know that that's true.
Yeah, I mean, going forward, I'm definitely gonna like at least take a quick look at make sure all the high end cards are accounted for. Because I guess in my head I was like, there's no way I can check everything. There's so much here. But I think going forward, at least the top 10 cards that are making up the bulk of the value, you got to make sure they're all there at least. But at the same time,
right.
I don't think I'm ever going to be in the habit of double checking PSA's work.
I want to say, advice, should have checked the Kobe,
Yep.
but I don't know that I would have. I mean, I might have, but yeah, that's. I guess if it's a $2,000 card on an $8,000 deal, yeah, that might be or whatever it was, that might be worth
100%.
a true look over. But yeah, I think that was more bad luck than a mistake.
Okay. Yeah, no, 100%. Well, once again, I know you don't have all the information and you have kind of answered a good amount of the questions here, but from what you know, someone comes to you, they message you on Instagram, they say, "Hey, I'm in the beautiful Hawaii. Here's some pictures of the more expensive slabs, the more expensive raw cards. Then I have a bunch of bulk." How would you have handled if this deal had come to you?
Yeah, so touching a little bit before, I would have definitely agreed on something up front that, well, and that's very specific. Like I would have had him send me pictures of all the graded, and I would have made a list. I mean, you actually kind of did that. I would have just agreed on a price for just the slabs, and then said we'll do the raw separately while I'm there, and made sure that made sense with the cost of the flight and stuff up front. And I mean, probably to be honest, there's no way that deal would make sense if it's a $7,000 deal, and I have to pay $1,200, travel expenses to Hawaii plus 3 days of my time or 2 days of my time, whatever it is. It's pretty unlikely that those numbers are going to work out. But if I really wanted to go to Hawaii, I might have made an exception.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I just thinking to myself, like a $7,000 deal in Hawaii, it's pretty unlikely that would pan out.
Just in terms of the travel expenses versus the potential profit.
Yeah, and for me, the time. I mean, yeah, I'm on the East Coast, so that changes things a little bit. I mean, a trip to Hawaii is 3 days at least. 3 days, and the numbers just aren't going to work unless he's asking like a ridiculously low price.
Yeah, I think that's kind of answering your earlier question. I definitely factored in Hawaii, right? I'm having a hard time. What state am I going to pick on here? Hopefully not too many viewers, even though Vermont's a beautiful place. Let's just call it Vermont, because hopefully there'll be not a ton of viewers.
Vermont.
But like if someone was like, "Hey, you got to..."
Vermont is beautiful. Why don't we say Vermont in the winter? Though?
Okay, Vermont in the
definitely
winter. That works for me. If someone's like, "Hey, come to Vermont in the winter," and you got to take a train to pick this up, and it was $1,200. Like if this same deal had been in Vermont, no way I was going to pick it up. No way.
Right.
So
right.
I was like, it's fun. It'll be a cool video and stuff. So that ended up being true. The video, I think, got some good content out of it.
Yeah, which has value.
Yeah. No, 100%. It's funny. I definitely have thought about that. Like, the Kobe didn't work out, but even my girlfriend told me, she's like, the karma and stuff is gonna come around back from this. And obviously it's not like just, I don't know, the support and everything that everyone has given, even just getting to talk to you and stuff like that. It's kind of been like, at least a lot of good things did end up coming out of this.
Yeah, I imagine. And it's your second deal, man. Like, I was probably, 200 deals in before I was like, okay, I really don't make mistakes anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And even I still do, but I mean, I'm saying where like I rarely do, but you got to make mistakes and learn from them. That's the whole point of life. Right?
I think that's a little bit of this business as well. There's always going to be risk involved. Like risk is very, very inherent in this business. And that's something I'm learning. And you kind of have to, another lesson I'm trying to tell myself too, is like, if you want to scale and actually be profitable, you have to be, okay with that risk as well. Right. Like,
for sure.
Like the $1 cards, why I was so addicted is because I'm very, very risk averse. I'm like, I know for a fact I won't lose money on this. And I was just,
that's why I love dollar cards too. Yeah.
It was so great. And, versus let's even just like a lot of things, grading expensive cards has been very good for me lately, right? Like you buy, you grade in $1,000 card, you get a 10, that could be $4,000 right there versus,
Right.
but what would really hurt me is I would buy an $1,000 card. Let's say I get an 8, I sell it for $600. I'm like, oh my God, you lost $400. You're an idiot. Like, what are you doing? Go back to the dollar cards. But if you hit 2 of those 10s, that covers a lot of the losses. So that's something I'm trying to remember as well. I'm not recommending making it a habit of like, this sounds like I'm turning this into you're not trying to just gamble away all your money. Like, you're obviously always got to be careful and mitigate the risk. But I think being completely risk averse, you're kind of limiting yourself.
Yeah, and I have losses on grading cards all the time. Every one of my orders has losses in there. But it's like you're looking at a collection of cards, and you want to have more wins than losses, and so it balances out. And a couple of big hits, can cover a lot of losses and with grading.
Yep. I say in my order sometimes, I'm like, it only takes one. It only takes one, and it can cover the whole thing. That kind of reminds me of a random question, but I think I've kind of cut down on grading a good amount, or I've found that the amount of cards where you get a return on, obviously it has significantly changed from COVID, but it's just really, really, really gotten smaller. Have you found that as well?
Oh, big time. I actually just did a video on this recently. Like, I'm actually surprised that grading continues to grow in terms of the number of cards graded. For me, it's like there's so few. The number of cards that it makes financial sense to grade has really, really come down, and especially with ultra modern, like a lot of $10 cards that 2 years ago in a PSA 10 would be like $100 are now like $25, and well, you can't send that.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense to grade that.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me has been, like, a lot of times if it's not over $100 in a 10, especially on ultra modern, I'm just not even going to send it in. Like before, like even for a little bit, like, a Stephen Curry silver that's $10, grade it for 19, might sell for $60 on eBay in a PSA 10.
Okay.
But I was like, after fees and the fact that you're not guaranteed a 10, I'd just rather not, at that point.
Yeah, those numbers don't work out anymore, especially because getting 10s has gotten harder. How long have you been grading for?
I've been grading for a while. I've been grading since like 2019. Well, a while for me,
so
I guess. No,
that's a while. Do you remember feeling like it was much easier to get 10s back then?
Oh, the biggest thing has been, I don't know how much of my PSA conspiracy theory hat I want to get on. I was looking back on my old spreadsheets, and especially on ultra modern, it was straight 9s and 10s. I wouldn't get a single 8. And now I just had one pop today. 6, 7, 8, 7.
Yeah.
That's what's confusing to me.
Definitely. That's one of the big reasons there's even fewer cards worthy of sending in. Even your Curry example in a 10, you can make $30 or $20 after fees, but it comes back a 9 half the time, and you're losing money, or even more than half the time. Now maybe. Yeah,
I remember. It's funny. I even had during a COVID, I had I almost had I think I even used the term $45 slab theory. I was like, I forget exactly how I worded it, but I said something to the effect of, in a 9, I know I at least can move this for $45, $40 slab. And that really was the case at the time with like modern basketball rookies.
Right. Basically anything, not anything, but anything of note. Yeah. Base LeBron even.
Yeah. Base LeBron, Chronicles, paper of a rookie. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I got this card for $10. Upgrading it for 15 or whatever it was. I was like, my worst case is $45.
Oh man, I know.
So I was making money even then.
The only problem was PSA was so slow at that point.
Yeah, that was a very interesting time. But even I remember looking at it too. I was like, man, if I could just somehow snap my fingers and have PSA give these cards back to me in a month, I just retire. Be good for life.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is, like, if you go back even further, like 2016, 17, 18, grading was like $8. Yep. And the number of cards that were like $2 that in a PSA 9 was worth $20 and in a PSA 10 was worth $60 was infinite.
Oh, wow.
Infinite. So you could if you were aggressive, you could grade indefinitely But I think looking back, I wish I had jumped on that more,
Yeah,
taken more advantage of that.
it's funny.
I think those days are never coming
Well,
back.
that's the big thing, right? Like I always look back and I'm like, oh man, I should have done this. I should have done that. If only
Yeah.
I'd done this. But you can't. There's no way you can live like that, you know.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
I think
for sure.
one more note on the PSA stuff is I think a big part of
Yeah.
it was people seeing like the percentage of people who saw slabs as an investment vehicle. So they thought like those PSA 9s in a $45 card, they're willing to pay for that value because it's like an investment. If you kind of see what
Yeah.
I'm saying, like they knew it would hold that value, right? But a lot of what I found now is a lot of people who are buying just genuinely want the cards for their collection, right? So especially in the soccer card world, where I found it's a lot more collector based. Even if I get a 10, some people will just straight up tell me like, and they're fair enough. They're like, I don't care though. Like I don't want to pay. I would have paid you the same amount if it had been raw or whatever, which I think is honestly true for a lot of people buying these cards.
That you see that in the soccer world, in like the modern soccer world a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, especially for the fringe. Obviously, if you get a Holland rookie 10 or a Messi 10,
Yeah.
people are going to pay the premium. But a lot more of these, like in the soccer card world, and I won't make you dive into this whole thing here, but the amount of people aren't really like investing or flipping outside of those like three main guys. So
Okay.
even someone like Netherlands, I don't know if you know, but Xavi Simons is playing for, I think he's at, oh no, he was at PSV, now he's at Leipzig, but he's a young Dutch talent, right? A good player,
Okay.
but people aren't like if you grade one of his cards, people aren't investing in him the same way they're investing in a Cade Cunningham or Joe Burrow or Adley Rushman. So they're willing to pay that premium on a 10 because they think that they'll be able to sell it to someone for more, or it'll go up in the future. With these soccer cards, like they just kind of want it for the most part. People just want these for their collection, so they don't really care about the increased value you're giving them.
That's nice. That's how it used to be. Going back to the original, just pure collecting.
If
right?
it's gotten a little bit different now, but I've gone to I set up at a couple of shows in London first when they were first setting up, and it was like
in London,
yeah,
you set up shows in London.
you should go.
Oh, dude.
I set up in Germany as well.
No, you did in Germany.
Yeah.
There was a show. What was the how big a show is there in Germany?
It was big, and like Topps is there, like they're all the companies are there. It's fairly big.
Well, I know David Adams has has a actually has a place in the Netherlands, but I lived on the border of Germany. How did I miss a show? There was a how many tables were at the show in Germany? Like 100 or not that many?
Maybe not 100, maybe like 60 or 70.
Okay,
Maybe 80.
And I assume it's heavy soccer and basketball.
Heavy soccer and a good amount of football though. It was actually right when they were having the NFL games in Germany.
Oh,
Was when I was there.
okay.
I was in Munich, but it was really cool.
Munich was a bit far for me, but still.
Yeah, London Card Show is the one I go to that pretty frequently. It's really great.
Card show is big. Okay, how big is that?
That one now is huge.
Like more than 100
Oh yeah,
tables
for sure.
Or
Over 200 at least.
over 200 tables in London.
Yeah.
Oh man, awesome! That's a good sign. That's a good sign for global growth. So, and what's big in London? Football and soccer. Well, soccer obviously, but football.
Definitely
basketball?
soccer. Definitely soccer. I mean, you see some TCG. It's kind of mixed out there too.
Yeah.
But yeah, soccer is definitely the biggest one. I would say. Definitely not baseball. Baseball's the one that like.
No.
Yeah, you're not.
Nobody does.
You're not going to see any baseball, but basketball and football, there's a good amount. Especially like some higher end stuff. Like if someone can get their hands on an RPA or something like that of like a big player, it's not something you just see floating around there every day.
Okay. So there was a card store in Germany, in this small town, like not small, but a small town, not a major city. That was about a 2-hour drive from me, and I would go there, and it was like it was incredible how much high end stuff the owner had. The market's just different over there. There's not much, but they do hit the high end stuff. There are high end guys out there.
It's so different. And the funniest thing too is sometimes I've done a couple trades or like negotiating, right? And here, especially at shows, it's so transactional. People are quick. Pull up the alt app. Yeah, yep. Let me scan it real quick. 70%. Okay, times 2. Blah 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 blah. I can do 3,000 value. Give me 2,500. Blah 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 blah. People are quick. Yeah. Over there, I was having such a hard time negotiating because we weren't talking numbers. They would be like, "Oh, but I like this card a lot. I'd maybe give you 2 of these." And instead of like, but the numbers weren't the way they were thinking about it. I'm like, there's no numbers matching up, right? Like they would trade 2 cards that were worth $1,500, but they wouldn't trade 2 other cards that were worth like $400 because it's just what they liked.
Because it was their favorite player or whatever.
And we kept moving the puzzle pieces, and I didn't know what pieces would fit together because like they just had this own perception of their mind of what it was kind of more worth to them versus the comps.
This is so funny. This is so funny you say because there were a few small shows. I went to a couple small. I mean, I'm talking like 20 tables in Belgium, in the Netherlands, and Germany. I was there for 5 years, and I probably went to 6 shows in the 5 years, and they're all that size. But exactly what you're saying is what I experienced. It was like everyone was a collector, like and they had a collector mentality, and it was like Rick Smits was my favorite basketball player. You know, I'm not trading. You know, it's worth $100. I wouldn't take 500 for it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like this sort of thing, and there was a lot. It was just such a collector mentality. It was really kind of refreshing, and there was a lot more. Everyone wanted to trade as opposed to buy and sell. There was not much cash moving around, but everyone wanted to trade.
It was interesting.
So it was a different experience. I thought it was really, really cool. I would have loved to go to a bigger show that was like that.
You should definitely go to the London card show, I think, just to experience it. And I think also obviously people would love to see you there. But yeah,
was London that vibe too? Because I actually assumed it wouldn't be. I would assume it's like I don't know.
It used to be. It used to be a little bit. Okay. And me and my friend Brian, and we went together. We almost joke. It's like, oh no, we've created monsters. Because the first time we went, literally, like I set up, and someone was like, "How much is that Tottenham card right there?" I go, $70.
Yeah.
They go, "Okay." I was like, "Okay, what?" They're like, "I'll take it." I'm like, wait, that's it? No negotiation? No killing me on comp? Like, I literally was... 50, I was literally...
You're supposed to be offering me 50. I'm supposed to be like, no way. And then we go back and forth. Don't you know the rules here?
I was literally confused. He literally said, okay. And I said, okay, what? He's like, I'll take it.
That's funny.
And the first time we set up, or like, they'd be wanting to do a trade, and we get so close. I'm like, you know what? Like, I'll just buy it from you. I'll pay 90%. I'll be super generous. They're like, no, thank you. I'm like, what? Like, I'm giving you cash for your card.
They want another Rick Smith.
Correct. Yeah. It's but it's definitely changed a lot. Like before, if you go to shows now, I'm sure you've seen it in Dallas, there's a ton of people walking around just flipping, or looking to cash out, or actively buying, not for themselves at the very least, right? The first time I went to the London card show, there wasn't a single person doing that. It was,
which is really refreshing, right?
It was like going back in time. It was one of the. It was so nice, and
it was like everyone's a kid who just wants to buy their favorite player.
Yeah, which is
or trade for.
Obviously, it's like it's easier for me to preach to the choir. Like I'm doing this as a full-time gig, right? Like, and even I take some responsibility because in London, like we're like, oh man, you guys got to grade this stuff. You can 4x. Like you made that trade all wrong. That's blah blah blah. And then we come back.
Then we're just thinking this way.
Yeah, and we literally came back, and then these guys like we'll see on their Instagram story like cashing out, moving quick, find me at the London card show, all this stuff. We're like, oh no, what have we done?
What have you done? You took the last pure collectors in the world and you're corrupted.
Literally. But I think the growth over there is gonna be huge, and you already see it happening.
And that's a great long-term thing for the hobby, right? Is worldwide growth would be huge.
Yeah. Once again, I could literally sit here and talk cards with you all day, man. This is so fun. But I guess I like to provide value. We'll leave the people with one thing. I know this is a super broad question, but what general tips would you give people? I know a lot of people they aspire to maybe do this full time or on the side, like, let's call it what it is, make a little bit of money from buying sports cards. What I wouldn't ask you, like, not like, okay, who to buy, singles, blah, blah, all that stuff. But if people are looking to buy more in bulk in collections, what kind of advice would you give them?
I would say that. So I get asked that a
Yeah,
lot, and just do it. You're gonna and don't worry so much if you do well on the first one. You're gonna mess up. Trust me. I messed up lots. You've made a bad. You're gonna mess up. Like you're just gonna make some bad buys. You're gonna lose. Just do it. But the more you do it, the less you mess up. Don't overthink it. Get into the game. It's like get into the game and do it. And that applies to basically anything in life, right? If you think you're just going to be awesome right out of the gate, you're not. You got to do it, mess up, learn, do it, mess up, learn, do it, mess up a little bit less, learn, and then over time you don't mess up as much.
100%. That's my biggest.
Yeah.
I'll no one asked me, but I'll give my advice as well to people who want to start a YouTube channel, especially about like sports cards. Same thing. I'm like, just do it, because
Same thing.
people are like, oh, I need to like. They'll get so fixated on like their first video and making it
Yeah.
perfect. They're like, oh, it's no good. I'm like, it's
Nobody's going to watch your first video.
right. I'm like, even if you put your whole life into this first video, I promise you, not only will no one watch it, it also won't be good. Like,
Right. Absolutely.
you
It's
just
not
gotta.
right.
I look back on my first videos and like people have said this, but I'm like, oh my god, what was I doing?
That's embarrassing.
Yeah, like you just have to.
Oh,
You'll
dear.
get better as you go, and also
Yeah.
there's no. It's just I can tell you exactly how it's going to go. It's going to be a slog, and you're not going to get views, and it's going to take a while. You just have to.
Right.
You have to accept that.
It's the exact same concept. Yeah. Yeah. No, nobody's going to just kill it on their first video, and nobody's going to just kill it on their first card collection.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah.
Perfect way to wrap it up. Well, hey man, thank you
Yeah.
so much for coming on and giving me the advice. I'm feeling a lot better about myself. I think next time I get out there and buy a collection, I can crush it.
No, yeah, this was really fun, man, and I love your stuff. It's really really cool.
Thank you, man. Well, once again, everyone check out Chris, baseball card collector, investor, dealer. I'm sure if you're watching this video, I'm sure you've seen him before, but I'd at least throw that plug in there. Thanks for being on, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah.